For me, my golf swing is all built around my left arm and hand. When I push it back with my left, it brings my shoulder, because it's attached to my shoulder. Don't have to think about turning my shoulder. If I push my arm back, once I get past here, Dick, come on up here a second. Set, take the club back. Notice how he could not swing that club back more than a foot when I held his shoulders. Thank you. The reason he can't is because if you restrict your shoulders through tension, your arm cannot move. What happens is when you take the club back with your left arm, your lead arm, if you're a right-handed player, once I get to here, this shoulder has got to respond for it to go farther. So when more I take it back, the more this shoulder is going to move. Because if I stop the flow right here, I can't go back with my arm. So here's what you do instinctively: use your hands. So you have one of those short little tight swings that looks like a football arc instead of a wider arc here. When my shoulder moves, my hips are going to move, because my shoulder can't move unless I allow my hips to move. And if my hips move, my legs are going to move. And if I'm back here and I want to go back farther, my hips are going to move in response to my shoulders, my legs are going to move in response to my hips, and my heel might even have to come off the ground to get my arm back. Remember, it was my arm that I wanted to take back with the club. Gary.
Are you saying the shoulder turn as a result, not a cause?
Correct. Couldn't have said it better.
I never think about turning my shoulder.
Here,
think about
ask the question again.
What he's saying, my point is that your shoulder turn and your pivot is a result of what you do or don't do with your left arm or your right arm. For a good player, when you swing your lead arm back, your shoulder has to move to respond to it. It has to. If it doesn't, it will stop your arm flow.
So when your best friend that you're playing with tells you that you didn't make a good turn, he's really saying you didn't take the club away properly with your arm.
With your lead arm. That's exactly what he's saying. Doesn't know that, but that's what he's saying. Exactly. Because when you push this club away low, what do? You create more torque on your shoulder. If I just pick it up with my hands, nothing happens. So by pushing the club away low with your lead arm, you create a wider arc. You create more torque on your shoulder. When your shoulder moves, it moves your hips. And all of this happens in a beautiful sequence. The last thing that moves might be your left heel. But the first thing that moves is my hand and arm taking the club away. When I get to here, you see how my shoulder starts to move in response to my left arm. As I keep going back farther, you see my shoulders moving more. That's moving my hips. As my arm keeps going, my shoulder moves more, my hips move more. Now my legs start to move. My left knee starts to bend in. And the farther I go back, you see that extends. Now, if I got to here and I couldn't get back any farther from here, if I allow my left heel to come off the ground, I can go back farther. So, if you're not so supple, you might have to allow your left heel to come off the ground to get your arm back farther. Why do you want to get your arm back farther? Excuse me.
Wait. So now you're all the way back to where you want to be.
Correct.
Your hips are cocked, your shoulders are turned, your arms are open.
All right.
Now,
maybe not quite like that, but I like it.
Looks like you start the backswing with your hip. Isn't it you start with your arm?
Left arm and hand.
And your hips. No, you never try and come back with your hips. You try and come back with your arm.
Right.
It brings your hips and shoulders.
Right. Now, here's why. Because I could stand here all day long and turn my shoulder. I could turn my hip. I could move my leg. I could make my heel come off the ground and never move my arm. But I can't, as you saw with Dick, I can't move my arm past here without my shoulder moving. My shoulder has to respond going back. And my shoulder moving moves my hips, my legs, and my feet.
When you're going through the ball, does that left hand stay dominant going through?
Absolutely, but we'll talk about going down in just a second. Any more questions on what gets your backswing? Because here's the problem that most of us make. We're right side dominant. So when was the last time you related to your left arm taking the club back? Never. So what do? You pull it back with your right. Nothing happens. Shoulder never moved out of the way, so your arm and hand are all jammed up in here, creating all this tension because it never moved out of the way. So now it's all jammed up. Guess what? Instincts are going to tell you to look for space. So what do? You push. Now it's over the top, coming down steep on the ball, ugly. When you push it back with your left arm, however, you create a very natural pivot. This pivot happens because it has to happen to hit the ball effectively. Not because you turned your shoulders, not because you moved your hips, but because you swung your arm back and it moved just as much as it needed to accommodate that. If you're a supple person, you can get all the way back. You won't feel that your knees have to move that much. Freddie Couples turns his shoulders beyond 90 degrees. And if you look at his legs, they hardly move. They hardly move. How supple is he with his back to be able to get it all the way back there with his arms and hands and not hardly move his legs? Unbelievable. Other people can't do that. You have to find your own spot here. But the point is, if you are not supple, you're going to have to allow your body to really relax in your shoulders, hips, and legs so that you can get your arm back. Because by not getting your arm and hand back very far, and you trying to hit the ball a long way, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to push that club down to gain speed. Because you never got back far enough for your brain to say, I got all day to build the power up. So what do? You instinctively push it to make it go faster. Game over. The minute you push, dead. Gary.
Is every come over a result of your right arm taking over? When I come over the ball, as soon as I hit it, I know I came over. Is that because my left hand lost control and my right hand was in control?
I would say more often than not. That's exactly right.
What are my other choices?
The other choice is sometimes you don't come over the ball and it still goes far to the left. Here's what happens. You come into the ball. Remember here we have an arc. Here's my arc. Go ahead.
If I knew I had to be supple, I would have never taken up this.
If I swing inside on line, on that target line, and as I'm coming into the ball, I'm perfect, and then I push it over here like this, my arc got to here beautifully, and then it went this way. I closed the club down completely at impact.
That's right.
The problem is I didn't come over the ball, I pushed the club over the ball.
Is that because of a short backswing?
Sometimes, because what does a short backswing do?
A three-quarter swing, a short backswing.
It can be. Mike Lipstick takes a half a swing and hits the ball great for one reason.
You learned in a telephone booth.
That was the second reason. He keeps his pace under control so he doesn't push the club from that short backswing. He feels he's back as far as he can go, and his brain accepts that and says, okay, I'm back, now lead it through at the same pace. But the minute you try to push it to make it go faster from there, you're in trouble. That's the issue that you have. So to answer your question, I have noticed over the past 54 years, and Bob Toski agrees with me on this, that the arm and hand that takes the club back is usually the arm and hand that brings the club down. Now that's an interesting thought. A golf swing is push, pull. The good swing. The bad swing is pull, push. Think about that. Push it back, lead it